Turning the page here, we promised another live interview. We've got it for you here on Live Impact News. We have our investigative reporter, Nate Morabito, joining us here in studio to chat about the latest report that you've put together for us. And this is an interesting topic because this is something that you and I had actually chatted about offline regarding a certain system where folks can donate via, let's say, Facebook or Instagram. And there's some problems, I guess, with a local animal rescue and trying to get their funding that they raised through that fundraiser.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're the one that we're talking to today, because you and I, must have been a couple months ago, we're talking with another nonprofit that maybe was having some issues with some donations that were coming in. And in the end, it seemed to me like it didn't rise to the level of a story potentially, but this tip came in, gosh, probably, 3 weeks ago or so, maybe a little bit less. And instantly it felt like an area that we needed to help this local rescue with. And let me kind of set the table for you. Daisy Bean Rescue. Are you familiar with that one?
I actually am,
Okay.
just through volunteer work and fostering and
I know they're familiar
being
with
plugged in
you.
with the animal rescue. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I know anyone directly with the rescue, but I've definitely heard of them and have had some communications.
Yeah, I mean, you're
through
so
social
plugged
media.
in with that animal community. And so anyways, back in January, I didn't really follow how this works that much. It's just not something that crosses my social media feeds. But essentially, this rescue, which helps dogs both in Charlotte and in Columbia, South Carolina, was asking for donations starting back in January through Instagram, through Facebook. And people were donating because there were animals that needed help with their vet bills. There's, food you need to buy. You're fostering animals. You're eventually, potentially helping get them placed eventually. And so in that process, they raised a ton of money, like more than $8,000, right? And this is a nonprofit, first of all, but a nonprofit with operational budget that really isn't that high last year. It was like something like $40,000. So $8,000 is a ton of money. And as the months go by, the money isn't coming in to this nonprofit. And they're starting to wonder, what's happening here? So eventually, April comes around. Rachel Leeser, who you're going to hear from in a second, starts making some phone calls to PayPal, because PayPal is the third party here, the intermediary that's kind of helping collect the donations and then sending the donations on to the charities. And she's calling. She can't get any answer. She says she can't find a person to get on the phone and explain to her what's going on. Maybe they did something. And you're going to hear her say that in a second, too, because that's something that kind of drew me to the story right from the get-go. There wasn't really blaming anyone. They're just trying to figure out how they can get their money. Because eventually, when this money doesn't come in, they have to put a pause. They can't accept any other dogs. And tell me this, Vanessa. I mean, you're so involved. There's not like a day that goes by where just dogs aren't needed. Like they're fosters or rescued, right?
Yeah, I mean, if for folks who are familiar with, any of our reporting over the last, I'd say, 4 years, I would say post-pandemic, every single day there's a capacity crisis at the shelter here in Charlotte, and they're always relying on not just, community members, just, one-on-one fosters. They have all these rescues. The rescues pull dogs from the shelter to keep the shelter from getting overcrowded, and that costs money because then they're in charge of vetting the dogs, making sure that they're getting all the medical care, paying for supplies for fosters who then foster through them. And that can be pretty expensive for anyone who owns a pet. That's not necessarily, a cheap sort of venture to get into.
Right. I mean, and ultimately, these rescues are saving these dogs' lives.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times these dogs are on that list where they're going to be the ones that will get euthanized if they're not rescued soon. So anyways, they have to put a pause on this because they can't get their money. And they're like, what's going on here? And there's this donor you're also going to hear from in a second named Meg Marks. She lives in York, South Carolina. She got a dog through this rescue. And also saw a post back in January and said, hey, I'm going to give $20 to the cause here. And then in July, this is July, gets an email that says, from PayPal, we were unable to deliver the money to the charity that you wanted. Please select another charity.
Oh, man.
And she's like, what are you guys talking about? I dedicated this money specifically to this nonprofit because I'm connected to it, because I think they do good work. And the alarm started going off in her head. So let's take a listen if we can, James, and then we'll kind of keep going through it.
We are only receiving a very small portion of the donations that donors have tried to get to us as a result of PayPal holding a lot of the funds that were committed to us. It's about $7,000, and we can't get access to anyone from PayPal to give us any clarity on why we can't get them. It's totally and absolutely fair. It might be user error on our part. We might be doing something wrong, but we need someone to tell us what we're doing wrong so that we can get it right.
They'll ask for donations randomly, especially when they take in a new case. They have a lot of experience with taking in dogs who are experiencing parvo, and those dogs need immediate medical attention. So when I donated most recently, that was what it was for. So I just assumed my money was going right to them for parvo intervention.
Oh.
Didn't go to them initially, or at least they didn't receive it. So Meg reaches out to WCNC and says, hey, I'm a donor. I don't really know what's happening here. This seems to be really concerning. It ended up being more than $7,000. You heard Rachel say $7,000. It's more than $8,000 here. That over time, this nonprofit just does not have access to. And then donors you have start getting these emails from PayPal saying, we're not going to be able to get the money to this charity, to this rescue. So when we're at Meg's house, I'd already interviewed Rachel, and I started reaching out to PayPal because this felt like urgent. They had to keep turning down dogs. They couldn't help dogs in need in our area. And I emailed PayPal immediately. PayPal responds quickly, says, we're going to look into this. And by the end of the day, PayPal calls Rachel and says, we're going to get this taken care of. We think there was a misunderstanding here. We're going to work to get the money to you as soon as possible. So the next day, we went out and talked to Rachel. This is before the money actually arrived, but there was a promise that the money was going to get there. And this is probably one of my favorite moments in the last month because you can just tell how relieved she is. I mean, she's running an organization. This is not like her full-time job, right? Like this is something that is a passion project for her. Her heart's in it for the animals. And she finally can start saying yes to the animals again. It's huge. So let's take a listen.
Can I please give you a hug? Thank you so much.
Oh
I literally have been crying all like the past 24 hours. Yes. I'm like beside myself. I literally can't thank you enough.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it.
You know,
I love to see it.
Rachel was saying, you know, when I started talking to you all, she's not the one that reached out, but she says, I don't know. I always see these stories in the news where some company did something and then the reporter will say the company would not comment. So she really wasn't getting her hopes up. I think she was kind of surprised that it got to this point. I was a little surprised it moved this fast too.
Yeah.
But, you know, the more we learned about the situation, there's always a little complication here. And in the end, the customer service wasn't what it should have been for her. And I really don't think she did anything wrong here. I mean, I feel like that she tried to do everything the right way from the start. She had enrolled in the PayPal Giving Fund, which is for nonprofits. She did that last year. And I think what ended up happening here is there was some kind of miscommunication or glitch where instead of depositing this money into Daisy Bean Rescue's account, PayPal mailed physical checks to an address that was listed with the nonprofit that she moved from in December.
Oh, wow.
Remember, this all started in January when the donations started coming in. So it was just like the perfect storm of a situation that honestly dragged on way too long. She really did try to get this resolved. And you can tell just by hearing her. I mean, she seems like just such a sweet person and just means well. And to not be able to get those answers was really difficult. I'm just glad we were able to kind of answer the call for them and get the needle moved because they're already accepting dogs again.
Yeah.
And she kind of gave me this list of just all the things $8,600 could pay for. You can imagine because you're so in this community. I mean, that is a ton of money from, you know, spay and neuters to helping with behavioral classes to make sure dogs can get adopted to heartworm treatments. I mean, it just goes on. Dog food. I mean, what a thrill that we were able to play a small part in getting to this point. And thanks to Meg, who reached out to us. That is something I always try to ask people to do. If we don't know about it, we cannot help you. And the worst thing we can say is, I don't know that we're going to be able to do anything in this situation.
Yeah.
But more often than not, I think, I see there's some avenue where I can help. Even if it's not do a news story, which this story is going to air tonight at 6 on WCNC. But at the least, there's usually some kind of path where we can get involved and maybe help. Now, you're going to have some issues that are more consumery, that are, you bought an appliance and there's an issue with a warranty, or you bought a car. One-offs like that, we're generally not going to be able to help you with those. Those are, strictly consumery kind of things. But when there's big picture, egregious situations that really have impacts in our community beyond a house, this is across 2 states, we want to invest the time and resources to see what we can do to help. And thank goodness we did in this case.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad to see the outcome, because I know it can be tough when you try to reach and communicate with some of the larger companies. It can be difficult even from a social media perspective, maybe trying to get a hold of certain social media companies. I know you went through PayPal in the situation, so that kind of, I think, maybe made a better path. I think that was really smart on your part. And to your point about this maybe being a larger issue, I mean, I know this is just one specific case, but I mean, think about how many times you've, maybe gone on Facebook and you've seen friends say, oh, today it's my birthday. I'm raising money for this charity. Please donate to my Facebook fundraiser for XYZ charity. I mean, that's all handled through PayPal. I mean, that's how the money gets dispersed in those cases. So, I mean, I feel there's so many people out there who have donated through this type of platform that maybe, I'm not saying it's going to happen in every single case, but maybe just keep an eye on whether the funds actually make it to the group, or, if you're one of these groups, I know you're watching the money anyways, but keep a close eye on whether you're getting what was stated on this online fundraiser.
Yeah, and PayPal will tell you too, you got to monitor your account. And they want, particularly these charities, which I'm curious, if there's other charities that have dealt with this, I'd love to hear from you, because I think there may be a broader issue. But you also have PayPal, which is a highly reputable company that is trying to ensure that it's doing the right thing every time. Nobody likes when this kind of situation happens, when something falls through the crack. So I've got to believe in good faith the company is trying to work hard to prevent this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But like with everything, if you don't advocate for yourself, no one else is going to do it for you. And so you've got to monitor your account. You got to make sure your information's up to date. I mean, who would have thought that moving houses might have an impact on her getting checks that were mailed to an outdated address? It seemed like a stretch that would even come to your mind.
Yeah.
But maybe if she had updated the address, the checks would have come to her new house. That being said, it still would have been kind of weird to her. Why am I getting physical checks at this day and age?
Right.
So, I think that's really critical, is that you're monitoring the account, and also you're reaching out to the PayPal Giving Fund if you're a nonprofit. And if you're just dealing with PayPal directly, PayPal itself has a customer service kind of outlet too.
Yeah.
I just think people need to speak up. They need to monitor their situation, and if there's a last resort, we are here to help. I would like to think that we have a pretty good, batting average when it comes to these kind of situations. But every time something like this happens, we can't always get involved. If it rises to a level where animals, humans, housing, safety is involved, health is involved, we try to make it a priority to do what we can.
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing great work, so I'm just so glad to see that this is another success story on the list. As you alluded to, the fact that $8,000 plus, I mean, that is going to make a difference. I think about, not only just the, average dogs, if you will, that typically get pulled from a shelter by a rescue. A lot of these rescues, they also pull, I want to say, dogs that might be tougher to place in homes and adopt out. For example, we know that senior dogs, because of medical care that they need, extensive care in some cases, might not make it out of a shelter, but a rescue will take a chance on a dog like that. And then also, the way things are, spend a lot of money to try to get that dog in good health. You talked about, I heard you mention parvo treatment. That's expensive. That's usually a puppy, illness that we see. And, I mean, that can be it's extensive and laborious and expensive treatment too. I mean, and in some cases, if a rescue doesn't take a chance on a dog and they don't have the funding, that dog might not make it out of the shelter.
And I was actually thinking about this today. I have a rescue. Basically, we've rescued 2 dogs over the last, 20 years or so. And our current dog, Fig, is a rescue from a local nonprofit. And I never really thought about what it took to ensure that he was in a position that he could be eventually adopted by us. And it's all because there was a rescue that was willing to say, hey, there's this dog that was wandering the streets. It needs some care. It's going to need a foster home so that eventually it can be placed into a forever home. Behind every dog like that, there is a rescue, there are volunteers, there are donors who are trying to make sure these animals get to places where they're taken care of. And it hurts my heart that for a period of time, they were having to say no to those animals through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want to see. We want to see people speak up. Meg did in this case, said, hey, these are my friends. I adopted my dog through them. I gave money to them. I want to make sure they're treated right. She reached out to us. Thank goodness she did, because I don't know what their situation would be like had she not. She gets a lot of credit there.
Yeah. Thank goodness for that. Nate, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing your full piece. You said 6 o'clock tonight?
6 o'clock, yep.
All right. As folks keep it here on WCNC Plus, once Live Impact News is wrapped up at 4 o'clock, we go straight into the evening news and